Every Tuesday at exactly 2 p.m., my husband Richard left the house. For 38 years, he never missed an appointment. Rain, blizzard, flu, it didn't matter. He would put on his beige trench coat, kiss me on the forehead, and say the same 6 words. "Just keeping our future secure, Linda." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Richard was an accountant. He was the most organized man I had ever met. Our taxes were filed in February. Our bills were paid the day they arrived. He was the rock upon which our family stood. But rocks can crack, and sometimes what looks like a rock is actually a hollow stone filled with venom. Richard died on a Tuesday, the same Tuesday he was supposed to be securing our future. He collapsed in the parking lot of the bank, clutching a manila envelope. I didn't cry at his funeral. Everyone thought I was in shock. They whispered, "Poor Linda, she's numb." But I wasn't numb. I was relieved, and I felt guilty about that relief until 3 days later, when the letter arrived. It wasn't a condolence card. It was a notice from the bank regarding a safety deposit box I didn't know existed. And inside that box was the answer to a 38-year-old mystery that would destroy my life, pit my children against each other, and force me to fight a war I never signed up for. This isn't a story about grief. This is a story about the stranger I slept next to for 4 decades. Before I tell you what I found inside the box, I need to know who is listening. Pause the video right now. Go to the comments and tell me, where are you watching this from? And tell me, do you handle the finances in your relationship, or does your partner? I'm reading every single comment. Now, let's open the box. The day Richard died, I was in the produce aisle picking out avocados for guacamole. He loved guacamole on Tuesdays. My phone rang. It was my son, Michael. His voice was unrecognizable, thin, high, terrified. "Mom, get to St. Jude's Hospital. Dad collapsed." By the time I parked my car, Richard was gone. A massive coronary event. "Quick and clean," the doctor said, as if death is ever clean. The funeral passed in a blur of black casseroles and lilies. People kept telling me how lucky I was. "He took such good care of you, Linda. You won't have to worry about a thing." I nodded. I played the part of the grieving widow, but deep down, beneath the layers of shock, I felt a strange lightness. For years, I had felt managed. Richard handled everything. If I asked about money, he would pat my hand and say, "That's my department, honey. You just make this house a home." It felt like love, but looking back, it felt like a cage. 3 days after we put him in the ground, the mailman delivered a plain white envelope. No return address, just my name, Mrs. Linda Sullivan, typed in sharp black ink. I opened it at the kitchen table. "Dear Mrs. Sullivan, we wish to express our condolences regarding the passing of your husband. Per the terms of the lease for Safety Deposit Box 847, we are informing you that you are the secondary key holder. Please contact us to arrange access or to close the account." I stared at the paper. Box 847. Richard had a safety deposit box. He had never mentioned it, not once. We had a fireproof safe in the study for our passports and birth certificates. Why would he need a box at the bank? I called the number. The bank manager, a woman named Patricia, was kind but formal. "Yes, Mrs. Sullivan, you are the co-signer. You have full access. Can you come in on Thursday?" Thursday. That gave me 2 days to wonder, 2 days to let the dread settle in my stomach like a stone. I started going through Richard's home office. It was immaculate, files labeled A through Z, life insurance, pension, house deed. I opened the life insurance folder. It was empty. My heart skipped a beat. I checked the pension folder. It contained statements from 5 years ago, but nothing recent. I started pulling out drawers. I looked behind the filing cabinet. I looked under the rug. Nothing. Michael came over that evening. He found me sitting on the floor of the study, surrounded by paper. "Mom," he asked gently, "what are you doing?" "I can't find it, Michael," I whispered. "The life insurance, the retirement updates, it's all old. It stops in 2019. Michael knelt beside me. "Maybe he moved it digital. Did you check his computer?" "I don't know the password," I admitted. "He never told me." Michael was IT savvy. He spent 3 hours trying to crack Richard's laptop. When he finally got in, his face went pale. "What?" I asked. "What is it?" "Mom," said Michael, turning the screen away from me, "there are 3 checking accounts here I've never seen, and they're all overdrawn." The room spun. Overdrawn? Richard Sullivan, the man who balanced his checkbook to the penny? "That's impossible," I said. And look at this, Michael pointed to a folder on the desktop labeled Consolidation. He was moving money, big amounts, out of your joint savings and into nowhere. It just disappears. We didn't sleep that night. We sat in the kitchen drinking stale coffee, waiting for the sun to come up. Thursday morning arrived. It was raining, a cold gray drizzle. I put on my navy blazer. It felt like armor. I drove to the bank alone. Michael wanted to come, but I told him no. Whatever Richard was hiding in that box, I needed to see it first. I needed to look my dead husband in the eye, so to speak. Patricia met me at the vault. The air smelled of metallic dust and old paper. She used her key, I used mine. She slid the long metal drawer out of the wall. "I'll leave you to it," she said, stepping out of the room. I sat at the small wooden table. The box was heavy, cold. I took a deep breath. "Okay, Richard, what were you doing every Tuesday?" I opened the lid. It wasn't money. It wasn't gold. It wasn't jewelry. It was debt. Stacks and stacks of paper. The first folder was labeled Mortgage 2. I opened it. A home equity line of credit taken out against our house 3 years ago, $150,000. The second folder was labeled Mortgage 3, another loan, $80,000. The third folder was labeled Linda. My hands shook as I opened it. Credit cards, 10 of them, all issued in my name, all maxed out. Discover, Visa, MasterCard. I had never seen these cards. I had never signed these applications. But there, at the bottom of the applications, was a signature that looked terrifyingly like mine. Richard hadn't just been hiding money, he had stolen my identity. He had leveraged our home, my credit, and our future to the tune of, I did a quick calculation, nearly $500,000. And at the very bottom of the box, beneath the ruin of my life, was a letter. My dearest Linda. I picked it up. I read the letter. Linda, if you are reading this, I am gone. And if you are reading this, you know what I have done. I am sorry. I know that word isn't enough. 5 years ago, I made a bad investment. A sure thing that wasn't. I lost $50,000 of our savings. I was ashamed. I couldn't tell you. I thought I could fix it. I tried to trade my way out of the hole. Every Tuesday, I came here to move money, to pay one loan with another, to shuffle the deck so you wouldn't see the cards. I gambled, Linda, not at a casino, but with high-risk stocks. I kept thinking one big win would pay it all back, and I could close these accounts before you ever knew. I chased the loss, and I lost everything. The house is mortgaged to the hilt. Your credit is ruined. There is no life insurance. I cashed it out last year to pay the minimums. I love you. I tried to protect you. I failed. Richard. I put the letter down. I didn't scream. I didn't tear it up. I felt cold. Absolute zero. He called this protection? Stealing my name? Forging my signature? Leaving me destitute at 64 years old? I walked out of the vault. "Mrs. Sullivan?" Patricia asked, seeing my face. "Are you all right?" "No," I said calmly. "I need copies. I need copies of everything in that box. And Patricia, I need the name of a fraud attorney." Patricia's eyes widened. She nodded slowly. "I'll make the copies myself." I drove home in a daze. When I walked into the kitchen, Michael was waiting. He took one look at me and stood up. "Mom, what was it?" I threw the stack of papers on the table. "It wasn't an affair," I said. "It was worse. He stole us. Michael, he stole everything." Michael read the papers. I watched him go through the same stages of grief I had. Confusion, denial, and then pure, white-hot anger. "He forged your signature?" Michael shouted, slamming his fist on the table. "On 10 credit cards? Mom, this is prison-level stuff. He's a criminal." "He's dead," I said. "Prison is off the table, but homelessness isn't." We spent the next 6 hours tallying the damage. Total debt, $485,000. Checking account balance, $12.43. "We have to tell Sarah," Michael said. Sarah, my daughter. She was a daddy's girl. She idolized Richard. She was the one who collapsed sobbing at the funeral while I stood dry-eyed. "I won't believe it," I said. She has to, Michael said. He picked up the phone. He put it on speaker. Sarah, you need to come over, Michael said. Mom found something. I can't, Sarah's voice was thick with tears. I'm looking at photo albums. I can't be around Mom right now. She's so cold about Dad. It hurts. Sarah, Dad wasn't who you thought he was, Michael said bluntly. He emptied the accounts. He stole Mom's identity. Silence. Long, heavy silence. You're lying, Sarah whispered. I have the documents, Sarah. I have a letter in his own handwriting confessing to it. No, Sarah screamed. You're lying. Mom put you up to this. She never appreciated him. She's trying to ruin his memory because she's bitter. Sarah, listen to me, Michael said. No, don't call me until you stop lying. She hung up. I looked at the phone. My heart broke not for Richard, but for her. He had stolen her inheritance, and now, from the grave, he was stealing my daughter. She'll come around, Michael said, though he didn't look convinced. We don't have time to wait for her, I said, standing up. I have a house to save. The next morning, I met with the lawyer Patricia had recommended. Her name was Miss Sterling. She was sharp, aggressive, and expensive. I paid her retainer with the only thing I had left, my own small emergency stash of cash I kept in a coffee tin, money I had saved from my part-time library job years ago. Miss Sterling looked over the documents. Mrs. Sullivan, this is what we call coerced debt and spousal identity theft. It is extremely difficult to prove. Why? I asked. Because I was married, she said, taking off her glasses. The creditors will argue that because you lived in the house and ate the food bought with this money, you benefited from the fraud. Therefore, you are liable. So I have to pay for his crimes? Unless, Miss Sterling leaned forward, we can prove without a shadow of a doubt that you had zero knowledge. We need to go to court. We need to sue the estate of your late husband. You essentially have to sue a ghost. And if we lose? If we lose, she said softly, the bank takes the house, and you will be responsible for the credit card debt for the rest of your life. I looked out the window of her high-rise office. I thought about my garden. I thought about the room where I raised my babies. File the lawsuit, I said. It will be ugly, Linda. Your family might not survive it. My family is already dead. Richard killed it. Now I'm just trying to survive the wreckage. The weeks leading up to the trial were a different kind of hell. It wasn't the sharp pain of grief, it was the dull ache of survival. I needed money. The lawyer's retainer had drained my small emergency fund. I was 64, terrified, and applying for jobs for the first time in 30 years. I walked into a small independent bookstore downtown called The Page Turner. The owner, a sharp-eyed woman named Helen, looked at my resume. Librarian experience, Helen noted, but a 30-year gap. Why now, Linda? I could have lied, I could have said I was bored, but I was done with lies. My husband died, I said, meeting her gaze, and he left me with $500,000 in fraudulent debt. I need this job to pay my lawyer so I don't lose my home. Helen took off her glasses. She looked at me for a long moment. You can start Monday, she said. That job saved my sanity. Organizing books gave me control when my life felt chaotic, and Helen became the friend I didn't know I needed. She listened to the story of Richard's betrayal and didn't offer pity, she offered rage. He was a coward, Helen said one afternoon. He protected his ego instead of his wife. November arrived, the court date. The courtroom was freezing. My son, Michael, sat beside me. My daughter, Sarah, was absent. She had sent a text that morning, I can't watch you tarnish Dad's name. The bank's lawyer was young, shark-like. He wore a suit that cost more than my car. Mrs. Sullivan, he began, pacing in front of the judge, you claim you knew nothing of these loans, but you lived in the house, did you not? You drove the car, you ate the food. I did, I said from the stand. So you enjoyed the lifestyle your husband provided, and now that the bill has come due, you want to claim ignorance? I didn't enjoy a lifestyle, I said, my voice shaking. I lived a modest life. My husband drove a 10-year-old sedan. We didn't take vacations. I clipped coupons. I thought we were saving for retirement. I didn't know he was gambling our future on high-risk stocks. But you trusted him to handle the finances, the lawyer pressed. That was your choice. I trusted him, I shot back. That is not the same as consenting to fraud. If a surgeon operates on the wrong leg, you don't blame the patient for trusting the doctor. Miss Sterling, my lawyer, stood up. She was brilliant. She presented the handwriting analysis, she presented the bank logs showing Richard's secret Tuesday visits, and finally she read Richard's suicide note, his confession. "I tried to fix it before you ever had to know." "This isn't a case of a wife benefiting," Miss Sterling argued. "This is a case of financial abuse. He stole her identity to cover his own mistakes." The judge, an older man with a stern face, took a recess. We waited in the hallway for an hour. It felt like a lifetime. If he ruled against me, I would be homeless by Christmas. When we were called back in, the judge looked at the bank's lawyer. "The evidence is overwhelming," the judge said. "The signatures are clearly forged. The intent to deceive is admitted in writing by the deceased. While the bank has suffered a loss, they failed to verify the identity of the cosigner. I am ruling in favor of Mrs. Sullivan. The loans are voided due to fraud. The liens on the house are lifted." Michael grabbed my hand and squeezed it hard. Miss Sterling exhaled a breath she'd been holding. I sat there, frozen. I had won. I got to keep my house, I got to keep my name, but as I walked out of the courthouse into the gray November rain, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a survivor of a shipwreck standing on the shore watching the boat go down. I had my house, but I had lost my husband, my financial security, and my daughter.
That night, the phone rang. I stared at the caller ID, Sarah. I debated not answering. I didn't think I could handle another accusation, but a mother is always a mother. "Hello? Mom?" Sarah's voice broke. She was sobbing, not the angry crying from before. This was the terrified crying of a child. "Sarah, what happened?" I went to the bank," she choked out. "After the verdict today, I wanted to prove you were wrong. I wanted to prove Dad wouldn't do that." "Okay," I said gently. "I asked them to run a credit check on me, just to be sure." She took a ragged breath. "Mom, there's a credit card in my name, opened 4 years ago." My stomach dropped. "Sarah." "It has a balance of $23,000, she whispered. "It's maxed out. I never applied for it. The address on the file, it's Dad's office P.O. box." "Oh, Richard," I whispered to the empty kitchen. He hadn't just eaten his own tail, he had eaten his young. "He stole from me," Sarah said, the realization crashing down on her. "He ruined my credit. I was going to apply for a mortgage next year. I can't now." "Come home, Sarah," I said. She arrived 20 minutes later. She looked like she had aged 10 years in a day. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Richard used to drink his coffee and lie to our faces. "How could he?" Sarah asked, staring at her hands. "He was my hero. He taught me to ride a bike. He was at every soccer game." "He was both men, Sarah," I told her. "He was the father who loved you, and he was the desperate man who was drowning in debt. People aren't villains or heroes. They are messy, and your father was a mess." We cried together then. For the first time since the funeral, we weren't fighting. We were grieving the same loss, the loss of the man we thought he was. We spent the next month cleaning up the mess. Ms. Sterling helped Sarah file the same fraud affidavits I had used. Because we had the court ruling on my case, the banks folded quickly on Sarah's case. Her debt was cleared. But the trust, that takes longer to rebuild than a credit score. Michael, Sarah, and I formed a new unit, a family built not on a patriarch's secrets, but on harsh, ugly truths. And me, I kept working at the bookstore. But something was changing. Women started coming in, friends of friends. They heard my story through the grapevine. "Linda," a woman whispered to me one day in the mystery aisle, "I heard about the trial. My husband, he handles all the money. I don't know any of the passwords. What should I do?" I put down the book I was shelving. "Come with me," I said. I took her to the back room. We talked for an hour. I told her what to look for. I told her to check the mail. I told her to get a credit report. She came back a week later. She had found a secret gambling account. She caught it early enough to save half their savings. "You saved me," she told me. "No," I said. "You saved yourself. I just handed you the flashlight." It started with 1 woman, then 3, then 10. Helen let us use the back room of the bookstore after hours. We called it the Tuesday Club, reclaiming the day Richard used to betray me. It was a support group for women who had been financially blindfolded. We taught each other how to read investment statements. We shared numbers for forensic accountants. We cried, we cursed, and we rebuilt. I realized that Richard's betrayal wasn't unique. It was an epidemic. So many women of my generation were taught that love meant trust, and trust meant not asking questions. We were rewriting that rulebook. 1 year after Richard's death, I woke up on a Tuesday morning. It was sunny. I got dressed.
I didn't wear the navy blazer. I wore a bright yellow dress I had bought with my own paycheck. I drove to the bank, not Richard's bank, a new one. I sat down with the teller. I'd like to open a checking account, I said. Certainly, the teller smiled. Joint or single? Single, I said. Just me. And the name for the account? I paused. For 38 years, I had been Mrs. Richard Sullivan. I had hidden behind his name. I had drowned in his name. Linda, I said. Linda Miller. Miller? The teller asked, looking at my ID, which still said Sullivan. It's my maiden name, I said. I'm changing it back legally next week, but I want the account name to be ready. Okay, Miss Miller, she typed it in. I deposited my paycheck. It wasn't millions, it was $400, but it was mine. Every cent of it was mine. I walked out of that bank and into the sunshine. I still live in the house. I planted a new garden over the spot where Richard's prized hydrangeas used to be. I planted sunflowers, big, tall, impossible to ignore. I lost a husband, I lost a fortune, but I found something much more valuable. I found my voice. To every woman listening to this, if you have a Tuesday in your marriage, a secret, a locked drawer, a silence where an answer should be, don't ignore it. Go to the bank, open the box, ask the hard questions, because a man who loves you will show you the numbers. A man who loves you wants you to be secure, not dependent. And if you find out the worst, if you find the debt and the lies, know this. You are not stupid. You were betrayed. There is a difference, and you can survive it. I did. My name is Linda Miller, and for the first time in 40 years, I am debt-free.
Thank you for listening to my story. If you believe in financial independence and fighting for the truth, please hit the like button and subscribe to Granny Archive Stories. I want to know, do you know all the passwords to your family's financial accounts? Be honest in the comments. Check them today. Trust me.